Welcome back to Face the Nation. We begin this half hour with our Director of Elections, the fount of all wisdom on elections, Anthony Salvanto. By the way, Anthony, we'll have a final exam for you on Tuesday.
I was going to say.
No. And CBS News correspondent Nancy Cordes, who's just back from a lot of time out on the campaign trail. Well, take it away. How close are these elections? What's going to happen here on Tuesday night?
Close enough that I think it's going to be a pretty late night before we know, Bob. You know, we're going to come right out of the gate with a lot of really good races. You're going to see North Carolina. You're going to see Georgia. We can watch Georgia for a while because that one, it's not just who's ahead, it's whether anybody can get to 50% or that goes to a runoff. But then I think everything's really going to converge down on really Colorado and Iowa, which closes at 10 o'clock. And I think by the time we get to 10 o'clock, the Republicans might be getting close, but not there yet. Maybe 47, maybe 48 seats. And those are two Democratic-leaning states usually that if the Democrats can hold, they have a good shot. But if the Republicans are up in those, then I think they're on their way to the majority.
Well, what do you think, if the Republicans wind up, what do you think the most is they'll wind up with? 51, 52, something along there?
Right now, the best estimates we have it at 51 or 52. But that seat number is so important because if they turn out their conservative base, they win, they get to 51, that's a win. Some might even call that a tactical win in a year that's very good for them. But if they can go beyond that, if they can flip some of these Democratic-leaning states, suppose they get New Hampshire, I mentioned Iowa and Colorado as well, then it's going to start to look a little bit more like, we dare not say maybe a wave, but certainly more like an electorate that has tilted in their direction beyond their usual conservative base.
Nancy Cordes, you've been out there and covering a lot of these races on the ground. What are you finding out? Any single issue?
I'm sensing increasing confidence among Republicans in those two key states you mentioned, Iowa and Colorado. They're very heartened by early voting numbers. They're very heartened by new polls. A new Des Moines Register poll that just came out last night that shows Joni Ernst, the Republican in Iowa, ahead by 7 points. So they're feeling good. Democrats haven't started the heavy drinking just yet, but they're definitely thinking about where they want to drown their sorrows on Tuesday night. It's looking like a tougher road for them.
What's the issue? Is it the economy? Is it Barack Obama? Is there any one issue?
I think it's all of it. I think, you know, the economy may be improving, but people don't feel it in their wallet. And so there's sort of a glumness out there on the campaign trail, and that naturally makes people feel a little bit disheartened about the party that's in power. The president is incredibly unpopular in many of these battleground states, and even though the Democratic candidates, for the most part, are more popular than he is, they're distancing themselves from him, and that makes a lot of their base electorate feel less excited about going to the polls.
Well, that's exactly right. You know, the two groups we've watched in the polls this year, it's not just Democrats and Republicans. It's registered voters and it's likely voters. And every time you look just at the likely voters, the ones who say they're enthusiastic, the ones who say they're going to show up, that electorate gets not just more conservative, it gets older, it starts to look like a Republican electorate. That Democratic base, because they don't feel that this economy is working for them, are much, much harder to motivate. And to that extent, it is a motivation, not as much as a persuasion election. And the Democrats have so far had trouble getting them out to vote.
My question is, that goes beyond this election, is anything really going to change? Nancy, you talked to Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the Senate, the other day. Let's play a little of the interview here.
Do you see your goal over the next 2 years as blocking the president's agenda or showing that Republicans can govern in advance of 2016?
The main goal is to see whether we can make progress for the country. And obviously, the president is the only person who can sign something into law. So whether we can make much progress in the next 2 years depends upon him. I'd like to see him move to the middle and address issues that he says he wants to address, like trade agreements, like comprehensive tax reform. My members want to do that too.
And you said you're going to send him some bills that he doesn't like.
I'm sure. Well, that's an experience he hadn't had. You know, he's vetoed 2 little bills in 6 years, neither of which were of any magnitude. So he's not been confronted with anything that made him uncomfortable. I don't think there's anything wrong with sending the president a bill that makes him uncomfortable. He doesn't own the place. Congress is a factor too. You know, we are elected by our constituents all across America. Now, we need to have an impact on policy as well.
Nancy, does that mean that Mitch McConnell's going to move to the middle?
That's right. He's calling on the president to move to the middle. The big question is whether he will and whether he even can. The few times that he has tried to move to the middle over the past 6 years, conservatives in his party have yanked him back. They think compromise is a dirty word, but he knows he's looking towards 2016 and the presidential election. He knows he's got only 2 years to show, look, Republicans are not the party of no. We can get things done, and that's why you should put a president in the White House.
All right. Well, thank you both. And we're going to talk to our panel in just a minute about those very questions. Thank you all.